okay, last week, Representative Ron DeSantis, this is reported in the TennesseeStar.com. Rob DeSantis, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, introduced an amendment to the State and Foreign Operations Appropriations Act, blocking any U.S. funding to Islamic Relief worldwide. Between 2015 and 2016, IRW, which is the Islamic Relief Worldwide, received $370,000 in federal funding. Now, DeSantis explained to the Free Beacon that. Anyway, so just to clear up that, it has been claimed, unfortunately, and this was kind of repeated on his program. I'm referring to James White. James White, when he was sent the retread of this story in the Tennessee Star, Robert Spencer covers any of these stories and he'll share them, and he gave a bit of a background to the story and why Yasir Qadhi and how that is important and things like that. Now, he said, expect Robert Spencer to recycle the story about once every 3 to 4 months. That's the cycle these folks use, as I've discovered. So he's saying, well, this is just, rehashed. On his program, then, he dealt with the opening part. And if you just listen to that program, you think, well, that's all. It's just kind of repeating the same thing, and there's nothing new here. This is news, and this is a new story, so it's not. So, again, because it was Ron DeSantis last week, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Basically, this has come out. Now, these are federal investigations. Things have come out over various times. So, what does it say here? So, they're trying to block any funding. There shouldn't be really any funding for these groups, but any funding to any group that is tied to Hamas. I suppose start off there. That'd be a good place to start. Or the Muslim Brotherhood should be ineligible for funding. So, it says between 2012 and 2016, Memphis Imam Yasir Qadhi has helped IRUSA raise money. So this is over a long period of time. Raise money, speaking at a dozen fundraising events. This is in the Tennessee Star, by the way. More recently, he undertook an 8-day tour in the UK to raise money for the parent organization. I'll just see if I can get that. How recently that was reported in the Daily Mail. Yeah, this was actually news pretty recently. This is like April 2017. This is in the Daily Mail in the UK. It talks about British Islamic charity invites hardline Muslim, quote, hate preacher, unquote, who said killing of gays and stoning of adulterers is part of Islam, is to speak on its fundraising tour. Some of the points that they make, I'm not going to read all this article, but it says Dr. Yasir Qadhi will speak across Britain to raise money for charity Islamic Relief. He called Rise of Gay Rights regressive and praised Islamic punishments. Of course, this part's, obviously we are against the rise of homosexuality as well. US academic also called the Holocaust a hoax, but later called that a mistake. He claimed that, but there's reason to doubt that. Okay? Why? Because the Quran, Hadith, and all this kind of stuff is anti-Semitic. So, anyway, he said that's a mistake. And, there is taqiyya. Is he using taqiyya? We don't know. Okay, can we be honest here? We don't know. But should we take everything he says as face value? Or should we have a little bit of pause and say, maybe it's not consistent to what he says he believes, which is the Quran and the Hadith. Now, so anyway, that was covered. This is Islamic Relief UK. So he spoke there not too long ago, and that's reported in the Daily Mail. Now, it says here, Britain's Charity Commission, which regulates non-profits, requests IRW's decision to feature Qadhi, described by the Times as a hardline Muslim preacher who has recorded apparently telling students that killing homosexuals and stoning adulterers was part of their religion. So anyway, there's other information as well. So this is all in relation to DeSantis's amendment to block the funding to this group that is connected to Hamas. The Tennessee Star, I mean, look, if that can't be reported, why can't it be reported? Nothing would ever be reported again. Okay? This is a further development to the same, well, it's not the same. It's not is it related to the talks last January in the Interfaith Dialogue? Yeah, because White has legitimized him before a Christian audience, and this guy is connected to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no two ways about it. IRW, which is the group that he has raised money for, Qadhi has helped raise money for, was banned in Israel after a government report determined that the charity provided material support to, quote, Hamas infrastructure, unquote. Skipping on another bit, in 2012, Swiss bank USB closed IRW accounts, and 4 years later, HSBC severed its ties to IRW. This is the group in question here, out of concern for that funds raised and transferred by IRW were helping to fund terrorism. In 2014, IRW was banned from operating in Israel, while, this is really amazing, while the United Arab Emirates blacklisted IRW. The Muslim Brotherhood CARE, also based on ties to terrorism. Now, Yasir Qadhi has also spoken for CARE quite a number of times. And it has been said by some that CARE is Hamas, that these are various front groups. Tennessee Star goes on to state that CARE is a named unindicted co-conspirator in the largest U.S. terrorism financing prosecution related to the Homeland Foundation for Relief and Development, which was the largest Islamic charity in the United States, until 5 of its officers were sent to prison for funneling $12 million to Hamas. CARE's efforts to have its unindicted co-conspirator status removed in federal court only served to reaffirm that the evidence in court supported CARE's ties to Hamas. And quoting from that case, then, the government has produced ample evidence to establish the associations of CARE, ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, and also Qadhi was there recently. We covered that before in the program. Linda Sarsour was there. ISNA, NAIT, and HLF, which is the Homeland Foundation, the Islamic Association for Palestine, and with Hamas. So there's plenty of evidence that support associations and close links. So group after group after group, anybody who has any sort of knowledge in this area, anybody, they all say, look, people like James White and guys like that, well, it's really only James White that I can see is making his case. Well, he distanced himself. He doesn't believe that the Holocaust is a hoax anymore. That's a mistake. That was me in my younger times. Okay, is it possible that he doesn't believe that anymore? It's possible. However, when you still spend time around groups that are linked to terrorism and these views and other things like that, I think people have good reason to question the consistency of what he's saying. For example, look, in so-called quote-unquote Christian circles, Stephen Anderson, giving an example, Stephen Anderson who denies the Holocaust. Ridiculous. He's a false teacher. He's a false prophet, if you ask me. Okay, teaches a false gospel, preaches against repentance. Anybody preaches repentance, he puts him on a blacklist. Plenty of people know who Stephen Anderson is. So he denies the Holocaust. If I have a problem with, just say 10 years ago, I denied the Holocaust. Just say if I did that. And then 5 years later, I say, no, that was a mistake. That was wrong. But then I spend time with Steven Anderson, and I spend time raising money with him. I spend time in the same groups, the same anti-Semitic groups, the same groups who believe throwing homosexuals off buildings and all this kind of stuff. Do you think it might make you question whether you truly renounce those views? When we, in Christian circles, when we talk about repentance, if somebody says to you, I've repented of adultery, but you still find the same behavior, have they truly repented? If what they say with their mouth is inconsistent with what you see, is it truly legitimate? Should we believe that? Should we really be naive? I hope the answer you could say is no. Now, the spiritual aspect of it by itself is serious enough. The false religion, that's enough to oppose this. To oppose the building of the mosque in Stornoway. To oppose the interfaith dialogue between Yasir Qadhi and allow him to preach his false gospel. Okay, and you say, oh no, he didn't preach the gospel. Well, then James White didn't preach his gospel either. So you can't have it both ways. And I've talked about that plenty in the programs before.